This is Maddie. What's up?
Yeah.
Hey YouTube, what is up? If you're new here, my name is Maddie. I am an IFBB pro and online lifestyle and contest prep coach. I am the head coach over at Team MPowered Fitness, and you are watching a Q&A series today. So last week I put a little Q&A box over on my IG and had you guys ask me questions. I will be providing a little prep update, if you will, for you guys. Prep is kind of boring right now. Not gonna lie, nothing really is changing. Our goal was just to hold me steady. And after my pro card win in Irving in Texas, I was really just burning through food and my metabolism just picked up. I see this a lot with competitors who do kind of like show after show. So metabolism was just on fire, kind of going crazy. And so we've brought food way up. I have no cardio right now. My macros are at, I think, 260 carb, 85 fat, and 140 protein. So I've just been eating a lot. I'm hungry a lot and training really hard. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm working on brushing up my routine and things of that nature. But if you're new here, hello, welcome. If I don't know you yet, my IG is at Madsmichiefitness. I highly encourage you to head over there. You don't have to give me a follow, but I do like when you follow me because you know what happens next. I reach out to you and I get to know each and every one of my followers and patrons and subscribers because it literally sets my heart on fire. If you're a returner, welcome back. I'm sorry you're here. I'm so excited to have you. Thank you so much for tuning in again, whether you are on the Stairmaster, winding down at night and eating your Ninja Creamy, or maybe you're just eating a meal and in prep yourself. I hope that you're enjoying this video. I hope that you love and learn tons today. Maybe things that you're not expecting to learn. So if you're not a part of the IG fam, go head over there because I do ask questions on there frequently. You can ask me all the juicy deets. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in here. Let's start working through some of these questions that you guys asked. So question number one, I'm going to start with like some of the silly ones, if you will, just so we've got a lot of questions to get through today. So I'm going to do my best, okay? Buckle up, Buttercup. All right. Active wear pet peeves. Oh, yes, there's so many. I hate camel toes. I'm just going to put that out there. I think that that's probably one of my biggest active wear pet peeves, but aside from like a front seam, I really don't like pads in things. Like, free the nip, please. Okay? I don't like pads in things regardless. I don't care how big your kahunas are. Everyone likes to see razor blade, or everyone likes to cut glass, right? Next question. Do you ever disagree with your coaches since you're also a coach? I wouldn't say that I disagree with them, but I am one of those clients, and I encourage this even with my own athletes. My trademark as a coach that I always tell my girls is, if you have to ask me why, I have already failed you. Like, that's a knock to my ego. So I am a client that always asks why, right? I want to know why we're doing that. I want to know why I'm choosing to follow this protocol. I think that a lot of times, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, we can so easily become kind of puppets and robots to the sport and to our coaches if we're failing to truly step back and ask, okay, why do you want to do that? It's not that you're doubting them, right? But we should all be empowered in our decision making and educated around whether it's things you're putting in your body, whether it's supplements you're taking, whether it's cardio protocols, right? If your coach wants you to do fasted cardio, why do you want me to do fasted cardio? You might learn that there is no substance to what they're telling you, right? It just worked for some other girl. Or you might learn something that can, increase and heighten your not only knowledge about your body and about things that are going to work better for you, but can also increase and heighten your sensitivity to maybe protocols that aren't so good for you, or maybe things that could be done a different way. So I wouldn't say that I ever disagree with them, since I'm also a coach. If anything, I learn from them and I apply it to my own athletes. Feedback from your pro card win. My feedback at Irving, truthfully, we were kind of looking for feedback, right? Like after that, we were like, okay, so where do we go from here? But because I had won the overall, there wasn't, I mean, not that that means and that constitutes that immediately you don't have feedback, right? Everybody is going to have something to improve upon, or at least you hope. So my feedback was that my core had gotten a little bit loose, or I lost some, whether core control or I'd just gotten a little watery in between prejudging and finals. But we were really trying to avoid my glute striating because I was just burning through food at that point. So we actually had, at prejudging, we had me eat like 15 grams of coconut oil before I went on stage. So that could have softened me a little bit. But then right before finals went on, I was actually backstage getting glazed, and it was just moving so quickly. You know, it's like the big game of hurry up and wait. It wasn't like that. It was like we were moving fast. And, you know, at like Mach 9 speed, I'm back there getting glazed up, and I was eating my pump up snack. And my pump up snack was, yet again, this time it was a rice cake. I didn't just have to spoon feed myself coconut oil. I felt like I was oil pulling backstage, but it was, we put the coconut oil on the rice cake, and I think it was just so much at once. And then the adrenaline from having to eat it fast, I literally was like cleaning it out of my teeth before I stepped on stage. Next question. You only have one utensil for the rest of your life: spoon or fork, no spork. So fun fact about me, hold on a second. I love forks, and I have this nice set of forks. I think that a lot of competitors get like this, like we get attached to our utensils, right? Like we have our like special utensils, and this is my fork. I think I've used this same fork for like 8 months for every single meal, except my morning oats. I have a specific spoon for that, but I have like specific cutlery for specific meals. I have like a spoon that I eat my Ninja Creamy with. I even have a knife, like a butter knife, that I use to get the extra schmeg out of the little divots in the bottom of my creamy. Like I'm one of those girls, like nothing is left in my bowls when I eat. Literally nothing. And this is so TMI and gross, but I literally lick this bowl. You can see the part that I didn't lick. There's like a little orange right here because I put coconut oil in all my meals. So if I don't literally like lick my bowls, I'm probably missing out on so much coconut oil, and I need all my fats. So I lick my bowl and I use one specific fork. Oh, I love this. Yes. Thoughts on starting a podcast. I don't know about you guys. I don't know if you love to hear me talk, but I feel like I have so much to say all the time. I would love to start a podcast. So if you guys are interested in a podcast, maybe something that I release on Spotify, let me just add more to my plate, why don't I? That's one of my toxic traits. But leave a comment down below if you guys would be interested in a podcast, because I would really like to do that. If you guys get value from the videos that I post, let me know what topics you would like for me to discuss on a podcast. Like, would you like me to tailor that more towards competing, or would you like me to tailor it more towards like my life, or kind of hybridize it, or like lifestyle stuff? Let me know down below. Okay. What is the most difficult part of running a business and prepping? You know, actually, I think this is a funny question, because I think in a lot of ways, especially for me, it's easier. The part where I struggle the most as a competitor is when I'm trying to manage my relationships and work and competing. Because I feel like a lot of times my friends don't necessarily want to sit and hang out while I'm like filming or while I'm editing or while I'm onboarding clients or creating content. And I probably work 60 or 70 hours a week easy. And I really, really enjoy my job. I find a lot of fulfillment in it. So I'm personally fulfilled. But then sometimes I realize like, oh shit, like I haven't hung out with a friend in 6 weeks. So I think that sometimes like that's the toughest part for me. I think in a lot of ways the work helps me to stay structured. But I think for those that are juggling a job and competing or a job and prep, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I have is to stay on top of a schedule. Like, I think even if you're a lifestyle athlete, the whole idea or the notion of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna work out on Tuesday, or like, oh yeah, I'm gonna meal prep on Wednesday. Like, I am a pen and paper planner girl, and I literally put in the time that I'm going to the gym, the time that I'm going to like meal prep my fish, like if I see that I'm running low on it. I put in like the time that my first call starts and like the time of my discovery calls and when I'm getting cardio in or when I'm going for walks. I literally budget that in minute by minute. Not minute by minute. I shouldn't say that, because I think getting married to times when you fall short or you're a little bit late stresses me the heck out. But I really do make like a prioritized list, chronological order, things that need to get done for the day. I never suggest like willy-nilly just throwing it out that you're going to get a training session in on Thursday or, training in on Saturday or something. And I used to be the girl that would, hold on, I'm tangled. Intermission. Oh shoot, I'm really tangled. There's hair in here too. This is a moment of panic. This is not good. YouTube, we're in crisis. This is why I need a videographer to like stop the video, untangle me. Okay, we're good. We're good. Crisis averted. So, I think that I used to be the girl that used to go to the gym at like 2, 3 p.m. But once I gained momentum in any area, whether it's like laundry, cleaning my apartment, online shopping, going for a walk, checking in with my clients, like I am zeroed in, and before you know it, it's the end of the day, and that I'm not going to break up my day now to go train. So I do think that if you're trying to manage a job or running your own business or family related activities, like be smart and aware about when you're trying to budget that in. Like do it at the end of your day, do it at the beginning of your day. Don't try to like break it up and go in the middle of your day, or like go when you know you're smarter than you think when it's not actually going to happen. Don't set yourself up for failure. Don't set yourself up to feel stressed. And if you can anticipate your, like I could look ahead at my Tuesday and be like, oh, my Tuesday is pretty thin. But I start work at around 11 o'clock. And I know that I'm just going to go and there's stuff that's going to come up. So I expect the unexpected, and I know that I can work out early in the morning. It'll be behind me, and then I can work on work, call it a hard stop at like 5, 6, get my walk in, cook my dinner, and be done for the day. So planning your time and budgeting that in realistically, super, super important. Best tips for getting a glute ham tie-in. Let's talk about that. So a lot of glute ham tie-ins has to do with 2 things. Well, 3. Genetics, for one. There's some girls that will never have those super crispy glute ham tie-ins, but there's a lot that you can do. You can train your glutes really, really hard, okay? Like, you can hit legs and glutes 3 times a week. A lot of times when you're not able to get that fullness and that sharpness in your glutes, it's because they're underdeveloped. So you need to train your glutes, and not just any glute exercises. Like, you need to target the specific area of your glute. You need to target your, like right in that glute ham tie-in area, things that are going to work that are going to be like reverse hyperextensions, hip thrusts that are done correctly, barbell RDLs, dumbbell RDLs. I like those for that lower glute area, but then also getting lean enough. Like, I think a lot of girls run into the problem where they start getting lean and lean and lean and lean and lean, and they're leaning out in their upper body, and then they stop. Well, we can fill you back out. So we have to almost push the throttle a little bit further, go a little bit past the degree of leanness that you want to be sometimes, and then work to fill you back out. But it's that conditioning. It's like that little extra 2% of body fat, 1% of body fat that really allows the tie-ins to come through. But the first step to that is muscular development. And no, in most athletes, a 6-month off season is not going to get you the muscular development that you need to grow your glutes. Well, maybe 6 months, but I mean, 3-4 months, it's not going to get there. I had to take 2.5 years away from the stage to really develop my glutes. So I think that you have to ask yourself, and I'm getting into a big rabbit hole here, but you really do have to ask yourself, like, what is it about this sport that you love? Like, do you love being on stage and maybe not placing so well? Or do you love being on stage in the sport of bodybuilding? And the sport of bodybuilding, 75% of it is, or more, is spent off stage building, right? It's gaining weight, it's growing. I'm going to get off into a tangent if I go down the path of we're in this sport to build our bodies. But truly, we are in the sport to build our bodies, and that means growth, and that means the scale going up. And you can't necessarily isolate where the scale goes up, right? Like, you're not going to put on a tremendous amount of body fat if your goal is to grow muscle. Certainly, we can train the glutes and not train the shoulders, and you're going to grow your glutes and you're not going to grow your shoulders. But ideally, you know, if you're in a growing phase, the scale is going to go up. Things are going to get snug. You're going to have to go up in a clothing size or 2 or 3, and you're going to have to eat more, like point blank. What are you prepping next? Girl, where are you at? I'm calling you out because I'm in prep. I'm 7 weeks out today. How do you modify training and nutrition for girls around the time of month? Great question. So in terms of training, I don't really change training much, although I will say that a lot of right before your cycle, your estrogen or your progesterone rises. And progesterone is a hormone that oftentimes relaxes us. It makes us feel kind of lazy, maybe a little bit depressive, truth be told, and depending on the pathway that that your progesterone goes down and detoxifies down, whether it's more alpha or whether it's more beta, or your androgens, depending on the pathway that your androgens metabolize down, whether it's more alpha or more beta, will help us to determine what your symptoms will be around your cycle, whether you'll feel like more body dysmorphic and things like that, which doesn't really affect training. But since progesterone is rising, you kind of feel like you're dragging more. You feel more watery. You don't feel as confident. You feel kind of apathetic. So if I have an athlete where I've done like a Dutch test on them and that's something that I can see, what I might suggest doing about the week before their cycle is taking a little bit of a deload, like dropping the weight by sometimes up to 50%, cutting your sets in half. That way you can still focus on time under tension. You can still focus on progressive overload, just different means of that. But the truth is, once you start your bleed, if you've got healthy functioning hormones, and that's the caveat to this, your estrogen actually aromatizes into testosterone. So that's how we get a lot of our testosterone as females. But as you actually bleed, your progesterone drops and your estrogen rises. So in that cycle of that period of your period, you should be able to train really hard. You should actually have improvements in your strength. You should be able to hit PRs. So just because you're bleeding doesn't mean that you're going to have the worst training. I think a lot of times we get in our head and think that that's the case. Now, nutritionally speaking, if you are like most women, you are probably estrogen dominant. I can't just throw that out there without seeing lab work, but most women are estrogen dominant. And because of that, they feel crampy, they feel bloated, they feel not so great on their period. So there's a couple things that you can do supplementally if you can confirm that you're estrogen dominant. And that's something too that we do offer. I offer paid consults for supplements where I can write you up a supplement protocol. But I would want to see lab work and things like that. With that being said, nutritionally, there's so much you can do. You don't always need to band-aid it up with a supplement, right? So nutritionally, you can consume a diet that's a little bit higher in fiber leading up to your cycle and higher in magnesium. So we're talking about foods like beans, legumes, blackberries, raspberries, dark leafy vegetables, red meat, dark chocolate. Did I say cruciferous vegetables? Because let's harp on that for a second. Things like broccoli, cauliflower, artichokes, Brussels sprouts. Those are all going to be really good to detoxify the excess estrogen. So a higher fiber diet is really beneficial for elimination purposes. You actually poop out the excess estrogen that's building up in your system and causing a lot of your hormonal symptoms. And magnesium is good for muscle relaxation. So yeah, you can take like a magnesium glycinate or like a Prosorb magnesium for that specifically, but getting it through your diet is always going to be more optimal. Okay. Let's see here. Do you weigh your food before or after cooking? So I log my food raw, meaning I take my little plastic cutting board, I put it on my food scale, I cut my vegetables, I throw them on there. Like I cut like a chunk of zucchini or a chunk of sweet potato, and I throw it on top of my food scale, and then I weigh it raw, but I log it raw too. So the important thing is not only when you're tracking in MyFitnessPal, I think a lot of people who are new to tracking really mess this up. Like they'll log 3 ounces of chicken and they'll measure out 3 ounces of chicken, not realizing that that entry is actually for a raw weight. So what it means is that you're really eating 4 ounces of chicken. And that's kind of just a general rule of thumb, is that when you're cooking and eating meat, it's losing about 75% of its weight when it's cooked due to moisture loss. So you're probably going to lose a lot of, you could be gaining weight if you're doing that with all of your foods, right? Like if you're measuring out your cooked asparagus and you were actually logging raw asparagus, like there's a discrepancy there, and those little things add up. So you really, I see this all the time too. I'll see girls that log raw rice and they'll actually measure out the raw weight of it, and they'll have like a very, very little amount of rice. So it's really important that when you're looking up entries in MyFitnessPal, you can do it either way you want. You can measure, you could log your raw weight or your cooked weight. It doesn't make a difference so long as the two match up. So if you're measuring out cooked zucchini, your entry should say cooked zucchini. If you're measuring out cooked 90-10 ground beef, your entry should say cooked 90-10 ground beef. And the other thing that's important is the method that it's cooked by or in. So if you're air frying, you want to specify that in MyFitnessPal. If you're broiling, you want to specify that in MyFitnessPal. If you're cooking it in a fry pan, you want to specify that in MyFitnessPal, because these preparation methods also change the amount of water that's lost in your food. Favorite pre-workout meal carbs. My favorite pre-workout carbs are something that sits really easy in my system. So whether that's rice cakes with banana and honey, cream of rice, dried fruit. Like I like something that's really, really light, easily absorbable. A lot of times oatmeal is going to be higher in fiber. Same thing with like a lot of those like nicer, like the less ingredient like waffles and stuff. Those oftentimes have like chia and flax, and they're high, because they're higher in fiber, they sit heavier in your gut. They take longer to break down. And I'm a huge advocate of carbs before training. And this is just a little tangent. I'm good at those. But I don't really like to have a ton of protein before I train, or for my athletes. If you're training within an hour of when you have your pre-workout meal, you really don't want protein or fats in that meal, because the fats are going to slow the digestion of those carbs and the partitioning and the metabolization of those carbs. And the protein kind of does the same thing. All protein does, it's the same reason why you don't have protein on show day, right? We don't want anything sitting and digesting in your stomach. Now, if you've got 2 hours before you train and that's your pre-training meal, go ahead, eat the fat, eat the protein. You want to actually slow the digestion of that a little bit. But then after you train, yet again, is when you want the carbs in the protein this time, because the protein is going to be leverage for the amino acids to repair. Once again, I don't really have a high fat meal post training. I wait to have my fats in my later meals in the day, especially since I start to get hungry, and fats really help us to stay satiated. But after you train, high carb, higher protein. Before you train, high carb. I do no protein, no fat. That's just how the cookie crumbles, sis. Beliefs on PEDs. Can you turn pro natty? Absolutely you can. You can. It happens all the time. I think it's just that we see girls, and I was a victim of this too, like we see girls that they turn pro overnight, and sometimes when it takes a little bit longer, we start to get a little bit antsy in our pantsy. And I get it, right? Like we are so eager to just get that damn card, and we're all equally as deserving. So it can be really, really frustrating when you're getting on stage and you're getting the feedback, grow more, grow more, grow more. But you also have to weigh the trade-offs to PEDs, right? Like hair loss, androgenic side effects, hair growth, acne, mood changes, cycle changes, hormonal changes that you're going to have to at some point address, liver damage, kidney damage. Like there's a lot of things that happen that nobody really talks about when it comes to PEDs. And it's not saying that I'm against them by any means, but you have to ask yourself, like, what is it that is that really going to get you what you want? And if it is, and you're comfortable doing it, you're going to be able to grow a little bit quicker for sure. But the trade-off is you might just need longer time to grow. You might need longer prep so that you can get the body fat off easier. You might need to actually change your training as you go into prep significantly, because you don't have any extra added support to kind of keep pushing, right? The body wears down like a normal body would, void of that extra supplementation and push. So there's just different considerations that you have to take, but it's not that it can't be done. On prep, weight went up about 1.2 pounds from last week, and I'm feeling down about it. What do I do? Well, first thing, talk to your coach. I mean, your coach should be able to explain what the change, or at least help you to brainstorm what that scale increase is coming from. A lot of times it can be stress. If you've been more stressed, if your sleep has been off, the scale can easily go up from that. If you are just starting prep, like you're a week in, I think sometimes girls think that like changes are going to happen right then and there. Not always. Sometimes the body takes 2-3 weeks to respond. If you ate later last night, like the night before you got up and you weighed yourself, it could be the timing of that meal. I know that when I eat dinner at like 10 as opposed to like 7, the scale's usually up in the morning. What was your sodium intake like? Like maybe every single night you haven't been putting coconut aminos on your food, and then one night you decide to put coconut aminos. Well, in that meal alone, you could have had 700 extra milligrams of sodium. So that lot of extra sodium in that final meal is going to cause your body to just hold on and store a little bit more water. Where are you at in your cycle, right? If you are about to start your period, that progesterone's going up, we can count on your body holding a little bit more water. Did you just add a lot of cardio, right? Sometimes the scale, at least for me, sometimes it goes up before it comes back down when I add cardios, depending on the modality. And, if I'm doing something higher intensity like the stairs, the scale could go up a little bit due to inflammation. What did you train the day before? you weighed in? Did you train glutes, right? Or did you train a lighter body part like shoulders? Sometimes if you train a heavier body part, scale's gonna go up. Those are all the reasons. Maybe you pooped, but you didn't poop like, and you get it all out of your system. Maybe you didn't get it all out of your system. So that's where your coach can really help you to kind of look through your diet, look through the timing of your meals, look through your sodium intake, talk to you about your stress levels, and then you can come up with a game plan together. Best exercise for chest. That's a good one because I don't really train chest, but I love a good plate press. I think that's my favorite exercise for chest is like you take a plate like this and one of these. I really like those for chest, but I also like a machine loaded chest press or a plate loaded chest press. I feel like I feel it the most. With these, what's the best exercise for X, Y, and Z? Sometimes I love those questions, but I don't want you to think that that's necessarily the best exercise for you, right? When we're talking about exercise selection, the best exercise for you is going to be the exercise where you're doing it correctly and where you've got that mind-muscle connection. So I actually have all my athletes send me form check videos so that I can go through it, because maybe an exercise where Sally Mae felt it or Morgan Talley felt it doesn't mean that Jennifer Johansson's gonna feel it, right? So it's really important that your coach is also, looking through each one of your training videos and helping you guys collaboratively select exercises or giving you feedback on your form, on your tempo, on your cues, so that you can select the best exercises for you in that chest. How do you set up your low macro push days into high? How do you load into a show? So I actually don't do low and high days. If I'm doing a client that's on like a gut protocol, I will have them kind of carb cycle, and typically that's for bringing down inflammation, and a lot of times the immune system kicks in after 2 or 3 days. So if I'm carb cycling someone, it's typically a 2 on 2 off or a 3 on 2 off, but I don't personally have low or high days. In terms of how do I load into a show, that really is, I typically am going to linear load athletes, but the degree to which we linear load really depends on what the athlete is looking like. Like I have my athletes check in every single day. I typically have them check in as they get closer to show after every single meal. So while one day there might be adjustments, the next day we might hold steady. One athlete might have a much harder, maybe a closer to show linear load. I do like to start feeding my athletes up earlier. That way we have time to pull back. I know there's a lot of coaches that will like carb you up 2 days before the show, 1 day before the show. I would rather do it 2 days before the show, but they'll do it like the night before, and it's better than doing it on show day, but you're also playing with fire, right? If you have to pull back, there is no real saving grace there. There's no, you got to throw a Hail Mary at that point. What are your favorite exercises for building shoulders? This is such a good question, whoever asked it. Okay, so favorite exercises for building shoulders, I would say making sure that you're working each part of the delt, okay? So you've got your front delt, your medial delt, and then your rear delt. So in order to work your front delt, I really like an incline front raise with dumbbells. Lateral delt or medial delt, I really love things like plate loaded shoulder presses. What else do I love? I like side lying incline raises. So you actually lay sideways on a bench like this, and you'll do a lateral raise on your side. Anything truly that that isolates the muscle. And a lot of these things, as you can hear as I'm talking, are done seated. So typically if you're seated, you're gonna have to lower the weight. At least this is what I found in personal experience, because it's literally impossible for you to lift weight using your other muscles. You're not going to be able to swing around and fling around your weights. So doing like a seated lateral raise or an incline lateral raise or a plate loaded type of movement is always going to be better when it comes to controlling the movement and isolating your muscles. And then for rear delts, really like seated things once again. So whether it's a chest supported rear delt fly with dumbbells, whether it's a seated face pull, just things where you're not able to necessarily recruit your traps. I think a lot of girls in their rear delt movements, whether they're bent over or whether they're doing the cable crossovers for their rear delts, a lot of times will activate these traps here and then they start looking like this. So that's kind of how I go about that. I had to take an intermission. I was getting cold and I was getting thirsty. I'm back, YouTube. So let's go back. Oh, apparently I was checking my email. You ever do that? Like you leave to go to the bathroom, go get a hop tonic. I love these. This is the chamomile lavender. These are little teas. It's not much, but lavender and a hint of hops. Sparkling tea. Cheers. Why don't we dive back in? Is it possible to hire a coach just for my prep? All right. Yeah, it is possible. Would I ever suggest it? No way. Here's the thing. If a coach is able to just prep you for 12 or 16 or 20 weeks without knowing anything about you, you know off the jump that you're not going to truly get customized protocols. Like, they're really just guessing with your physique, right? Unless you're coming to them and you're already really in stage condition and all they have to do is put you up on stage. I feel like unless you're a coach that's got like 30 years experience and like you truly just like get the, like, I wouldn't say yes. And the reason being too is like prep requires, there's a lot of moments in prep where we doubt ourselves. And I love nothing more than having like at least 2 months, sparkling tea, where I'm really able to cultivate a relationship with my athlete and get to know them, like no pressure, not worrying about prepping, not stressed, so that I can truly get an idea of what their life is like. Like, what does their day-to-day look like? How stressed are they on the reg? Like, what are their identities outside of prep? How can I make sure I'm supporting them as a person as opposed to this is class C athlete? You know, this is Alyssa, she's class C, she wants to compete at Universe. Instead, like, I really do like to ensure, in order to keep athletes' longevity and maintain that and enhance that and keep them coming, you know, keep them competing, because ultimately we want to be in this sport for a long time. I think it's important that you get to know your athlete as a person and you develop that relationship and that rapport and that trust. That's the big one. We're telling you to do a lot of crazy shit when you're in prep. And so if you don't trust that person, and how are you supposed to trust them when you just hire them for 12 or 16 weeks? And how are they supposed to know really what works for you, right? All that they have to go off of is their experience with other athletes when they're telling you to get on the Stairmaster. What if the Stairmaster isn't suitable for you? What if you're an athlete that needs to do lifts on the treadmill? You know, I've had a coach that once told me that I needed to eat red meat because I wasn't using the bathroom. Well, you know where he got that from? He got that from one of his athletes that ate red meat and went to the bathroom. You know what it did to me? It constipated me. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to prep. So my answer is, sure you can, but don't do it. If I don't know if I want to compete. I think I do, but how do I know? Good question. I think that it's important without knowing all the details and without having a one-on-one conversation with you to explore, and this might sound silly, but what is your motive for competing? And I think that it's okay to want to win, right? We all want to win. I think it's kind of funny when people are like, don't do it to win. Well, shut up. We all want to win. But at the same time, like, is it to lose weight? Is it to look a certain way? Or is it to take things to the next level? Is it because you admire the girls that compete and you want to cultivate that sort of confidence in yourself? Or because you want this to be a kind of like a landmark or a what is it called? You want it to mark a specific pivotal point in your career, like your comeback from postpartum, or for me it was like, you know, that final marking the end of my eating disorder and like me truly overcoming that. So I think it's important to really identify and dig deep and find out what that why is, because if it's just that you want to look a certain way or because you want to lose weight quickly, first of all, there's a lot healthier ways to go about weight loss. Second of all, you're probably not going to last all the way up through a prep, because preps are freaking hard. Preps are a lot harder than just like a weight loss journey. And they're definitely not necessary. You know, it's not that you need to do a prep in order to lose 20 pounds, and it's not that you need to do a prep to look like a bikini competitor. I meet a lot of you guys over on my Instagram page, and you guys will be like, yeah, I'm not a competitor, I just watch your YouTube videos. And the first thing I say is like, you don't need to compete to appreciate the sport. So I think it's one of those things. Like, what is it that makes you want to compete? Are you someone who is like character-wise? Are you someone who's highly driven? Are you somebody who gives up easily? If you do give up easily, it's not a reason to not compete, but maybe this is actually something that we can anchor into, right? That you're finally proving something to yourself, that you don't give up when things get tough. But your reasoning to actually get up on that stage has to be bigger than something that is so superficial, like having a certain physique or losing 20 pounds. So hopefully that kind of tailors your thought process. I think it's about digging deep, finding that why, and then discovering and testing, right? Like, do a little visual forecasting. If you got up on stage and you lost, how would you feel? If you got up on stage and you won, how would you feel, right? Like, do you feel worse? I think a lot of times people think that they're going to get up on stage and they're going to win. Well, what happens if you don't? I'm not Debbie Downer, but we know that this sport, you lose a lot more than you win. So I also think that it's important that if you are competing for, say, I lost 20 pounds on this major weight loss journey of mine, and now I want to take things to the next level, is competing and potentially your placing going to cause you to get set back, right? Farther than had you just not competed and sort of stayed on your journey and on your path. I think it's important that you also understand how the sport of competing works before you get in it. Just because you don't get a good placing at a show doesn't mean that you're fat or that you're not gonna come back and win, right? Like, I've done shows, and because of the girls that showed up and what the judges were looking for on that day and how I performed that day, I did a lot better than at some other shows. Conversely, I've done a lot worse at some shows and then done a lot better the next show. So you can't get wrapped up in your placing. So just think about that. Think about why you're competing and do a little visual forecasting. What happens if you win? What happens if you lose? Don't set yourself up for loss, because everyone has the power to win, but does that make or break your opinion and how you perceive yourself and of the sport? I've been training consistently in the gym for a year, and I have an athletic background. I want to compete. How far off do you think I am? This is a great question. I think that, because you have that athletic background, we've got a lot of strengths already, right? You're competitive, you are self-motivated, likely, you're driven. But some issues that I see sometimes athletes run into, especially competitive athletes who get into the sport of bodybuilding, is when you play a sport, it's very black or white, right? Like, flag on the play, foul on the play, they scored a goal, they didn't win, they won. In bodybuilding, it's very subjective. So the judges are judging specific criteria, but they may be looking at you, but they're all they have to go off of when they're making these judgments and they're deciding who's placing where is who you're up against, right? This is the reason why girls go to shows and there's 4 girls in their class and they win their class, they get nationally qualified. Then they go to a big national show and they get last place and they're crushed. You go up against, what's there. The judges are able to judge what's on stage in front of them that day. So a lot of athletes can sometimes get in their heads and almost upset in the sport when it doesn't work like a soccer game. It isn't black or white. It isn't, yes, you've got developed glutes. No, you don't have developed glutes. There is no way to really discern that. You're being judged subjectively against other competitors. So it can change from show to show. So as an athlete, a former athlete, you've got a lot going for you in that you know what hard work is. You know how to stay on top of your schedule, I assume, your routine. You're able to follow a plan. You're able to take instruction. You're able to collaborate with your coaches, right? You've worked with a coach. You're a team player. I think a lot of people don't think that they have to be a team player to be in the sport, but man, it makes things a lot easier. But with that being said, it's not the same as a sport. At the same time, as an athlete, you likely have some advantages in terms, depending on what you've done or what you've played. If you've been a distance runner, maybe we need some lower body development or some upper body development too. If you've been a soccer player, we might need to, downsize your lower body and add some size to your upper body, because what the bikini division is all about is balance. We want to see an hourglass shape. We want to see balance. So just because you have an athletic figure, I see this a lot with girls who are like, yeah, I've been training for 4 years in the gym. Well, I trained for 5 years in the gym before I ever competed. You're training in the gym, even a bodybuilder style training. Don't get me wrong, you've set yourself up well, but you haven't necessarily shaped your body for the bikini division. So it's also important that you're working with a coach who has an eye for the bikini division and for the sport and knows how to, maybe make changes to your posing so that you're highlighting your key areas and maybe not highlighting your areas that are a little dominant or maybe that are a little weaker, and can tailor your training accordingly too. I did really well at my first show last season, but as the season went on, I kept getting worse. Should I compete this year? Great question. That's actually very similar to what happened to me last year, and I wasn't planning on competing. In fact, I was going to wait until Junior USAs of this year in May to compete. And I think there's 2 questions that I have for you. You did really well at your first show, and then as the season went on, you kept getting worse. Well, what does worse mean? If worse means that your gut started taking a hit, you lost your cycle and, you started losing hair or, you started feeling burnt out. Those are all key signs that maybe it's time to pull back, right? But if you kept getting worse in that your placings kept getting worse, are you competing at the same caliber of show every time, right? Like I just talked about, if you're competing at a small little regional show and then you did like a Clash series show and your placing got worse, that doesn't really surprise me. I would then ask, what was your feedback at those shows, right? Because a lot of times we can keep getting on stage, but the shows where you're truly going to get the feedback that's going to tailor your off-season plan or your plan to get back up on stage again are gonna be those bigger shows, are gonna be those bigger regional shows where the competition is true competition and not just 3 or 4 girls up on stage. Don't get me wrong, one time I did a show, I did the Monster Classic, and there was like 5 of us and I did terrible, but the girls that did show up were really, really quality athletes. But with that being said, the likelihood of that happening is just not high. So it's important that if you kept getting worse relative to what? Like, what was the quality of the shows that you were competing at? And then I think you have to ask yourself, like, do you have it in you? Right? The choice is always ours. I dealt with this with my own coaches, and they're so supportive of me always. But, you know, I had to have like a heart to heart with myself when they wanted me to do this pro debut, because my coach's job is what I've hired them for, right? All they know is what I communicate to them. So I've hired them to put me up on stage. I've hired them to make me successful in the pro league, at the pro level. And part of that is planning for a pro debut. Part of that is planning to, what's the next thing? Get qualified for the Olympia. So they're going to do everything in their power to help facilitate that for me. But I had to also stop for a moment and get clarity around, is this what I want? Because your coach's job, especially if they don't know that you're struggling, it's to continue pushing you to do more shows. So it's also important that you are asking yourself, what do you want to do? Because anybody can prep when the coach is telling you what to do, but if your heart's not in it, that displays on stage. There's no way to fake a girl that is not on fire to be there, or not on fire about being in the sport for that season of life that they're in, and the girl that is. The girl that's on fire to be there, the girl that's ready to, you know, dominate and take things, that's gonna show. You can't hide that, right? It's like trying to hide bitch face. Like, I can see you trying to smile through that. Yeah, you can't, right? So ask yourself. Okay. I'm struggling with binge eating, but I feel like a prep is going to help me gain control over that, since I'll have a meal plan. Would you agree or disagree? I disagree. If you're struggling with binge eating, diving into the prep is probably the last thing that I would recommend you do. Now, that doesn't mean that you're never going to be able to be a competitor. That just means if you're struggling with your relationship with food, and you're struggling with feeling restricted, and then my light just burned out, and then overdoing it, or, you know, having those episodes of binge eating. First of all, being on a meal plan may remedy things for some shortened period of time. Why? Because you're being told exactly what to eat. You're being told how much to eat. But the second that meal plan gets removed, or the second that you are triggered by something, or you have one of those nights where it just seems like that cereal in the pantry is screaming your name and you can't get it to shut up, that's when you run into problems. And when you binge and you're on prep, the guilt that's associated with that is so much stronger, because there's this like time sensitive date to get to the stage. You now think that you've let down your coach. Sometimes girls don't even tell their coaches, right? Their coaches are smarter. They're going to figure it out. So while a meal plan may help you temporarily because it's providing you some control, all that's doing is prolonging the inevitable, which is confronting the issue to begin with, what caused it, and how you can regain control over that, right? It's like transference. You're just transferring a problem to something else and prolonging, actually working through that problem and growing through it on the other side. There's a lot to be said for the athlete that takes 6 months, a year, however long it takes to really gain autonomy back, gain their self-control back, gain their, empower themselves through that journey of really working on some of those behaviors so that you can then navigate a prep, not feeling restricted, because there's no worse feeling than being in a prep and feeling like you're so restricted and so deprived. Like, think about it like sexual tension, right? At some point it just like builds up and breaks. Like, you're not going to be able to sustain that. That meal plan is not always going to be there. And I actually think meal plans are one of the worst things to do for somebody who struggles with binge eating, because essentially what you're struggling with is off-plan foods, off-limit foods. And in a meal plan, everything except what's on that plan is off limits to you. So if you're already struggling with that notion of these foods are scarce and they're off limits, the likelihood of you, getting rid of that behavior and getting over it is next to none, because the meal plan is not helping you to get over it. And the amount of foods that are now off plan or off limits are far greater. So the propensity and the significance, the magnification, whatever that word is, the magnitude of that binge could be so much greater. Okay. Whew, we have so many questions. Okay. My coach wants me to start on a low dose of Anavar. I'm an amateur and we've done 2 shows last season together. Our feedback was to grow. What are your thoughts? So my thoughts on that are, number one, like I had already said, the choice is always yours, right? I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not your coach and I am not you. But with that being said, it sounds like you are pretty new to the sport. And I think that when you're new to the sport and you truly haven't been on stage, I mean, more than twice, I just don't see how or why that's warranted. There's a thing called muscular maturity, right? And I get envious. You see some of these masters athletes and they've just got muscle out of the wazoo. I mean, they are so developed, and that muscular maturity is something that happens with age, right? It's why these Olympians are in their 30s, right? Their density looks different. Their muscles look different. It's muscular maturity. And there's something to be said for genetic potential too. I think that there's a lot of genetic potential for somebody who is an amateur and has only done 2 shows. I mean, I don't want to go out on a limb and assume, but you likely haven't been training for the bikini division or for this sport for all that long. So by giving yourself a few more years to grow and seeing where that takes you, you could prevent a lot of problems or side effects that could happen from the use of performance-enhancing drugs. Next question, how do you maintain muscle in a contest prep? Well, I think that a lot of people think, especially in fat loss phases, that when you lose body fat, you don't lose any muscle. I wish it was that easy. I wish that we could sort of compartmentalize what we lose and how much we lose, but in reality, you can't. When you lose body fat, when you lose weight, you're also going to lose muscle. So my number 1 tip there is make sure that you've spent enough time building muscle, right? Because just because your calories are at a good spot doesn't mean that you're ready to necessarily cut if there's no muscle underneath that. So the more muscle that you have going into a contest prep, the better off you're going to be. The higher also your metabolism is going to be, because muscle burns through more calories when you're at rest than body fat does. And the more muscle you have, the higher that resting metabolic rate is going to be. That's your RMR. But with that being said, how do you avoid losing muscle? Well, number 1, it depends on if you're enhanced or if you are natural. If you're enhanced, you're going to be able to hold on to muscle a lot easier. If you're natural, you're going to want to make sure that you're not overtraining. So I always suggest that my athletes never train more than 3 days in a row without taking a rest day. And you want to make sure that you're fueling your body properly. Not, keeping your protein high, keeping your meals and your food as high as possible. I also wouldn't suggest anything like a high intensity cardio, especially for a natural athlete. I like to do things like lifts. Sure, it's going to take a little bit longer for you to walk on the treadmill and burn the same amount as it would doing HIIT. But in terms of a muscle preservation perspective, you're going to preserve a lot more lean tissue doing a lighter intensity modality of cardio. I get bored eating the same meals every day in my prep. Advice on how I should change things up, or can I? So I think my advice there, it really does depend on how much you want to change things. So I used to be a girl who ate all different sorts of meals in prep, but where the problem then is, and these girls that kind of fit their macros in prep, is when you've got some bloating, right? Or you're in the final stretch there and you're really trying to eliminate things and make sure that all that extra water is pulled off of the body and we're nice and tight. or you've got some digestive issues, if you're changing things up, and this is the same for a lifestyle athlete, at every single meal and every day, number one, I don't know who does that and hits their macros every day. You can't change up every meal. And it makes it tough. Like, I can't imagine sitting at night every night, tracking my macros, new meals every day. What? That's so hard. Don't do that to yourself. So don't change up everything, right? It's really tough then to pinpoint what's a trigger, what works well, what doesn't work well. But with that being said, you might be able to swap out things like vegetables, right? Zucchini for green beans, zucchini for asparagus, zucchini for summer squash. Swap out your carb sources. Rice for sweet potato for oatmeal, oatmeal for Ezekiel toast. You might be able to kind of compartmentalize. That's why when I have clients or athletes that are tracking macros, and even myself, and I'm like a seasoned macro tracker, I like to sort of select food choices that come from each macro category. So I will get micronutrients in, so that's my fruits and my veggies, but then I will choose carb sources that are only carb sources and nothing else. They're not fats, they're not proteins. I'll choose protein sources that are not really fat sources as well. They're pretty much solely protein. And then I'll have my fat sources. And for me, my fat sources are just almond butter and coconut oil. And it makes it a lot easier when it comes to making those swaps for things, because it's kind of an even exchange. So from a macro perspective, it's a lot easier to do that when you've selected these single macronutrient foods. But in terms of switching things up, I really do suggest, like, switch up your Mrs. Dash, right? Get the Chipotle one instead of the garlic and herb. I'm not a sauce girl, so I can't necessarily err on the side of saying, like, switch up your mustard for coconut aminos. But if you are a girl like that, switch up your mustard for coconut aminos. Try marinara sauce instead of using barbecue sauce. Try, air frying things instead of steaming them. Try roasting things in the oven instead of microwaving them. So there's a lot of different ways to also change your meals solely by cooking things in a different preparation. Like, I love air fried vegetables. There's nothing that brings my heart more joy. Okay. My coach has me on a high protein, 200 gram, low fat, 20 to 25 gram, low carb, 100 gram diet. I've been doing more research and I'm starting to worry about the safety should I get a new coach. Well, I don't know anything about you particularly, but I will say 200 grams seems like a heck of a lot of protein, girl. The dangers of that really are that the sun is setting, dang it. But the dangers of that really are that that's a lot of stress on your kidneys. I would ask or venture to ask, what is your digestion like on that? And with fats that low and carbs that low, I would have to also say, are you converting now protein into energy via gluconeogenesis? Like, what's your digestion with fats that low cannot be all that great. Is your hair falling out? Do you still have a cycle? Now, I'm a girl that loses their cycle as soon as my fats get below 40, which isn't necessarily dangerous if fats get below 40, but that just seems highly imbalanced. And I would probably say that you're going to be dealing with some gut issues after your prep. So, I had a client with a very similar thing. We ran her labs. Her kidney and her liver was very, very stressed when she came to us. Mentally, she was dealing with a lot of issues with anxiety, with depression. She wasn't sleeping well. She wasn't recovering well. She had no energy. And like I said, her gut was a wreck, an absolute wreck. So ask yourself those questions. Much better. Are we in the frame? There we go. Okay, back to it. I hope you guys are enjoying your cardio. Have I gotten you through it yet? Are you going to pause me and save me for next time? All right, so I deal with severe bloating after every meal of the day. I work as an ER nurse. Tips on getting my bloat down. Yeah, I see this a lot with shift workers, and one of the primary reasons for that is because of stress and sort of staying in a sympathetically dominant state. If you are a shift worker, two things that I see really, really common are you're not truly ever able to just stop and eat your meal. So what I have a lot of my shift workers do is I will have them choose foods that are very easy to digest if they're having to eat a meal fast. Something like ground turkey with rice, or even like, going through if you've got to do like a protein bar type situation, like maybe doing like a vegan protein powder like a Truvani. I'm not sponsored. I don't get a kickback, but they did give me a coupon code, 20% off Maddie. Anyways, I begged them for that. But like a Truvani protein shake and like a Cliff or a Go Macro Kids bar could be, or Go Macro bar in general, could be really good for like a quick meal in the middle of your shift. If you can though, when you get a break on shift, I know how tempting it is to like chart or open up your phone, but take time, like 20 minutes to just sit down, be with your meal, and like allow your body to de-stress. There's a reason why they call it rest and digest. And that's because when you're in a sympathetic state, you're actually able to digest your food better. So resting is when your body's able to digest, and that's when you won't be as bloated. Another reason why a lot of shift workers do get bloat and things like that is because they're choosing foods on their shifts that are inflammatory foods. So things like protein bars, things like protein snacks like Quest chips. You want to make sure that you're eliminating, right? One of my terms in my coaching practice is control your controllables. So if you're controlling your diet and you're eliminating those inflammatory foods that have a lot of artificial sweeteners, have a lot of like gums and emulsifiers, you're going to be a lot better off. And then the third thing that you can do is you can incorporate things into your diet like glutamine. You can incorporate aloe vera juice. I like to do aloe vera and apple cider vinegar about 30 minutes before a meal just to help your body to digest the food easier. And that's a really great way to promote digestion and alleviate some bloating. And then my last tip for you is before you do go to eat, one way to sort of activate your sympathetic, that's your calming Zen nervous system, is to take 3 deep breaths before your meals. Because you're a stressful girl, right? You work a stressful job. We're grateful for your work and what you do, but calm yourself down before you eat your turkey. Okay. I go to bed every single night with a growling stomach and my sleep is taking a hit as a result. How do you deal with this in prep? Great question. How do I deal with that growling tummy? Well, before bed, teas are really great. Anything warm is usually really, really great to help your body to stay more satiated. But if you're finding yourself really hungry before bed, check your macro distribution, because sometimes it helps to have a higher fat meal in the latter portion of your day right before bed, because fats are going to stay with you a little bit longer. So by adding like a rice cake with some almond butter, or having some, like if you're doing a Greek yogurt before bed, putting some flax or chia seeds in there, putting coconut oil on your dinner, great way to help you to stay satiated. And then if worse comes to worse, I don't like to suggest this, but taking like a sleep time supplement, like there's some supplements from Cured Nutrition. They have their Zen, I think they are, or their sleep caps. I took those in my prep. Relaxed liposomal liquid is really good to just kind of calm you down. But warm tea, if you're not drinking anything before bed, it's a lot better to get up and have to pee than it is to not be able to fall asleep because you're hungry. The other thing too that really helped me in prep when I was falling asleep and I was hungry at night was I would eat my meal and like 30 minutes after go to bed. Like we oftentimes will eat our meal, then we'll set up for 2 hours, and like By then the food's digested, in like, not that you don't want to eat and then go straight into bed, but get into bed like while you're full. Like you've got a window of opportunity. Use it. My coach takes 2 to 3 days to respond to check-ins, and when I do, I get a 30-second loom. What would you do in this scenario? Fire them? No, I mean, I was in a very similar position with my previous coach. I mean, it was just very, very short check-in responses. And I don't really think I felt the impact of that until I realized that in a lot of ways, because I wasn't getting affirmed and knowledge and reassurance, or it was translating into my preps. Like I didn't really I was kind of just like, okay, well, I'm just going to do what I've been doing. And okay, well, I don't really know what the plan is, but I'm just going to follow. But I didn't believe in myself. Like I didn't believe that I could do it, because I was like, well, they said everything's good, so I guess I'm just going to keep going. And it really does make a difference when you're feeling like everything that you're bringing is being addressed, because nothing can get all, I mean, I don't know how you can address everything in a 30-second loom. I think I send 15-minute looms to my clients. So, I would first, if you want to stay with that coach, I would bring up to them what you feel like you need and ask if it's something that they feel like they can offer. Sometimes if a coach has a very, very large roster, they're not going to be able to offer you what you actually need. And so that's why, I now work with a coach who keeps a very, very small roster, and I'm getting what I need. And a lot of times the smaller teams too, are going to be more in alignment with that, with giving that in-depth feedback. I don't want to isolate this to small teams, because I'm not on a small team and my coach is fantastic, but I know she also keeps a small roster, is all I have to say. So I think it just has to do with making sure that you're communicating with your coach what you need. We don't know what you don't tell us, but then also asking yourself, is it worth it because of their name to be with them? I don't know who this is. Or if you're, kind of selling yourself short as an athlete. What is the most amount of cardio you've ever done? 2 60-minute sessions, AM, PM, on the stairs. What are the most important things to look for when selecting a show for the first time? Oh, okay. I'm just going to make this personal. I think when selecting a show for the first time, I'm not going to make it personal. Depending on the athlete, right? If the athlete wants to stay in the sport for a long time, if the athlete wants to have a career in this sport and truly see where they stand after prepping with a coach and putting the work in an off season, get on a stage that is going to have competition. Don't get on a stage where it's in your little podunk town with 3 other girls. You're going to win first place, and then you're going to go to a bigger stage and be crushed, right? So get on a stage where you're going to be able to get in front of a solid panel of judges, whether that's Sandy, Tyler, Becky, judges that have an eye for the sport, respectable people, with plenty of athletes, so you can truly see where you stack up. I'm a huge advocate and fan of the Clash series shows. Joe puts on incredible shows. So I also think that it's important that when you're selecting a show for the first time, that maybe your coach is helping you select a show where the athletes have a good experience. Because I will say I've been a part of and done shows where the athlete experience is just not all that great. And had it been my first show, I mean, I'm not saying that would have been the thing to make me not want to turn around and do it, but it makes a difference, the quality of the show and how they treat their athletes. Important things to look for when selecting a show for the first time. I think that's my biggest pieces of advice. I think you need to be like, when you're selecting a show for the first time, you need to be financially responsible too. You need to be ready for the financial obligation of that show, right? The journey to getting there, hiring the coach, doing the show, getting a quality suit, getting your hair done, getting your makeup done, getting your tan done. These aren't things that I ever suggest a newbie to the sport does on their own. It really does contribute to the experience, but two, you've worked so hard. So why are you going to potentially blow it by wearing like a cheap suit, not getting your tan done, not getting your hair and makeup done? Like, hair is something you might be able to do, but getting the makeup done, that's a whole different ball of wax. Tips on improving sleep in prep. Okay, well, we kind of already touched on this a little bit, but let's talk about it. I use these same tips for my lifestyle athletes, all right? A few of them right here. First one, turn your thermostat down. I know that seems silly, but think about what the cold environment actually relaxes your body. It prepares your body for rest. Think about cavemen. When we were back in the Paleolithic times, I'm going to take you back to history class in 1497. But no, when cavemen were in caves, there were a few things in that environment. Darkness is one of them. Stop walking around your house at 8 p.m. with the overhead lights on in every single room. Turn on lamps, turn on candles, make your environment a cave. Turn down your thermostat by 3 to 5 degrees. Turn on some white noise. Warm baths. Warm baths make a huge difference before bed. Warm tea. Like, don't drink ice cold things that you're going to be shivering and you're going to be like all awake. Get off your phone. Like, put your phone in Pandora's box and stop scrolling through TikTok before bed. Stop watching TV before bed. If you're going to watch TV, put on your blue light glasses. Journal, read before bed. Every coach tells their athletes to journal and read before bed. And I feel like 6 months down the road after you've been a broken record, they finally start to do it. And they're like, oh my God, I'm sleeping so much better. Just try it. If you haven't, do it. Like, it doesn't matter what you read. Some of you are going to be, enthralled by a book on competing. Some of you are going to just want to read like a Shape magazine. Some of you want like a self-help book. Read something. My 2 favorite self-help books are Stop Doing That Shit and Yourself. John Bishop, great books. Meditations. Meditations are really, really good for promoting relaxation at night. That is how you sleep in prep. Make your environment a cave, girl. Turn the lights down, turn the white sound on, and turn that thermostat down. All right. Last few questions here. We almost made it. My coach wants me to do fasted cardio, but every time I do, I feel like I'm going to pass out. Same. Is fasted really all that better than fed? Nope. There's no studies that prove that fasted cardio is superior to fed cardio. You're not burning more calories. There's a little bit more of a calorie burn with fasted cardio, yes. But when the studies have been done, you actually burn more calories throughout the day when you do fed cardio. So the calories are equivalent across the board. The only time where I suggest fasted cardio is if I have an athlete who's like, I don't have time to get food in. It stresses me out more if I can't just get my cardio done. Then I'm like, okay, let's do the fed cardio or the fasted cardio. Favorite cheat meals. I don't take cheat meals ever. I believe that cheat meals are actually really, really toxic and counterproductive to creating a healthy relationship with food. However, I do encourage untracked meals, where I guess you could say a meal that's untracked could be something that is more indulgent and less healthy, okay? But my favorite untracked meal, sometimes honestly my untracked meal is the same thing that I eat every other day. The purpose of untracked meals is really to make sure that you're continuing to work the muscle of being in tune with your body and when it's time to eat and when it's okay to stop, and actually not getting in that scarcity mindset with food where this is the only day of the week that I get a cheat, so I better make it good, right? Like, Think about that. That doesn't really purport the idea of having a healthy relationship with food. So my favorite untracked meal, I guess, would be probably... Honestly, this is going to sound kind of silly, but I really do love a good old bowl of ice cream. Like, there's this place here in Central Florida, it's called Kelly's Homemade Ice Cream, and it's so good. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like ice cream is sometimes hard to track. Like, depending on where you get it from and what's in it, you can't really be particular about what you're tracking. Because when I get hibachi, I can track that. When I get fajitas, I can track that. So my favorite untracked is truly going to be a Kelly's ice cream. And also, you know what I've been craving recently? SpaghettiOs. When I was a little kid, I would eat SpaghettiOs straight out of the can, unheated. Ew, I hate SpaghettiOs heated. That's so freaking gross. But I love me some SpaghettiOs. And the other day, I was on a walk and I saw a homeless man eating Hormel turkey chili out of the can. That cannot be good for you, but oh my God. Whew. One time when I was in college, my ex-boyfriend and I, there was a hurricane, and my ex-boyfriend and I went and got a bunch of canned food, and the hurricane was coming in like 3 days, and the only thing left, it was like it was perfect, it was meant for me, was Hormel chili. And it took me back to my childhood. My parents were divorced, and my dad made like pennies. And he used to get Hormel turkey chili and like these cheap Santitas corn chips for me. And I didn't like any sort of meat, literally any meat. Now I can't get myself to not eat meat, but he used to pick out the ground turkey and the turkey chili, so it was just beans, but he would like spoon it out. My poor little dad. What are your thoughts on switching coaches halfway through a prep? I was between two coaches when I started, and I think I chose the wrong one. Depending on how far out you are, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, what is the degree of your red flags, right? Like, if your coach is really dropping the ball and you truly feel like you could be more successful with this other coach, there's nothing wrong with switching. If, on the other hand, you feel like this coach could get you there and maybe it's like a clash of personalities, maybe stick it out, and then when you're done with your prep, amicably leave and go to another team. But I think the question does beg my question, which is, to what degree is like the red flags there? Is this coach telling you that it's their way or the highway? Is this coach not explaining things to you and they're raising red flags? Are the protocols making you feel in danger? Or do you just not feel very supported? And that's warranted too. Like, if you don't feel supported by your coach, what makes you think, like I said, you're going to be able to get up on stage and be confident? I think it's so important that you're not only with a coach that's giving you a protocol that's going to work, but also a coach that is working the toughest muscle of all in prep, which is your brain, and is helping you to cultivate that feeling of pride and confidence. Because at the end of the day, that's what makes a difference when you're on stage. That and your physique, but your physique will get there regardless. For me, and winning this pro card, it was that key difference. I've had terrible digestion ever since my last prep. What can I do to improve it? So a lot of times I see this with competitors who have been on meal plans or who have really eliminated a tremendous number of foods, and then post-prep or in their reverse, they brought everything in their mother back into their protocol. Artificial sweeteners, protein bars, different proteins that their body hadn't had in a long time, new sources of food, different carb sources, energy drinks, powders, and that can cause poor digestion. The other thing that can cause poor digestion after your prep is, I mean, depending on what else is going on, but if you've got some sort of underlying gut issue, a lot of times gut issues are going to kind of be stifled when your calories are lower, but the second that you start feeding the body back up and you're reversing and carbs are getting higher, especially if you're dealing with like a yeast or a candida or a bacterial overgrowth, the bacteria does thrive on sugars, on carbs that ferment, and on processed things that obviously convert into sugars. So if you are finding that as you're getting fed up and you're keeping your dietary sources pretty much the same and things are getting worse, it might be warranted to order a GI map. And to kind of explore that and to uncover if there is a bacterial or a bacterial overgrowth. That would be SIBO, if there's some leaky gut going on, if there's a parasite that's now flaring up in your reverse. But the first thing that I would look at, I'm not the holistic coach that says, oh, everybody has a problem. I would look through your diet and see if you're incorporating too much too soon, or, did you incorporate all your energy drinks back in? Did you incorporate all your sodas back in? Are you doing skinny syrups? Are you having sugar-free syrups and protein bars? Because those can really, really be tough to digest when you've came off of such a clean diet, like a contest prep diet. 3 more questions. I realize that my current coach has all of his competitors on the same exact training programs. How important is it that we are on different ones? I think it's very, very important. As an athlete who at one time was on a training program that hundreds of other athletes were on, my physique really started to change when I got truly customized training. And this goes back to a question that I answered earlier in this little podcast. But if you're doing the exact same training as 100 other athletes, like, how do those exercises even all work for you? Because I know that an exercise that has taken me forever to actually learn how to do is a barbell hip thrust. And I truly don't even feel like I've done them correctly up until now when I've started sending training videos in. But if you're getting the exact same workouts, they're not tailored to you. They're not tailored to, what body parts probably need a little bit more work, maybe what body parts need a little bit less work, maybe what exercises that you're sending videos in of that truly you're just not getting that mind-muscle connection with. There's always going to be little things to optimize, whether it's the angle of your leg or the positioning of your head or where you're balancing your body or what muscles you're recruiting or the rep scheme or the tempo or the rep ranges or the number of sets or the order even of exercises. That all matters when you're trying to truly cultivate create the best package, the best possible scenario for an athlete. So yes, there are certain exercises that will build shoulders. Yes, certain exercises that build quads. Yes, certain exercises that build glutes. But in exercise selection, that's a completely different thing. You should not be doing the exact same training program as every single one of the other athletes. Is it going to build muscle for you? Probably. Is it going to be slower? Probably. Is it going to be as optimal as having a custom training program? Absolutely not. I am 4 months post-show and I still haven't gotten my cycle back. How long does that take to recover? Whew. Okay, so this depends on a lot of things. Before you did your prep, did you get lab work done? And where were your hormones at then? How long have you been without a cycle? Typically, I can get an athlete cycle back usually within 6 to 8 weeks post-show, but we're running labs. We're implementing medical grade supplementation. Usually it doesn't take any sort of like progesterone push, or I've never done that with an athlete. Doesn't take birth control, but you've got to pull back on your training, your cardio. You've got to feed up. You've got to get a nice good amount of healthy fats in your diet. You've got to be managing stress. So stress comes in many forms: dietary stress, training stress, emotional stress. We've got to bring stress down in all forms. SARMs, PEDs, it's going to make it really hard for a cycle to come back. And like I said, the duration or the amount of time that it takes for any athlete to actually get their cycle back, it differs. It's case dependent on the actual athlete. But I would say roughly 6 to 8 weeks is a good time period, time frame to hopefully get a cycle back really quickly. That's kind of the sweet spot for myself and my athletes is 8 weeks. I did have an athlete where it took about 12, but she was on coming from another coach and she was on SARMs and everything else. So Different for each person. Last question here. Is a breast augmentation necessary to turn pro? Do I have one? Hopefully that answers your question. I don't think that it's necessary. I think that a lot of girls get breast augmentations because they're disproportionate. Like a lot of girls truly do have like little ant bites, and there's nothing wrong with that. Itty bitty titty committee. Hello. But I think that a breast augmentation, if it makes you feel better, and when you feel better, you're going to be on stage and you're going to be more confident and you're going to be more yourself and the judges are going to see that, then go for it. But a breast augmentation too, there's side effects, there's risks, there's downtime, right? There's pros and cons to everything. But at the same time, if you're really, really unbalanced and it's going to add to your physique, might be worth considering. If you're not, like myself, you know, it's a very much like an elective. It is an elective surgery. There's pros who don't have them. Laura Lee is one of them. You don't see it as often. And the reason why I truly believe you don't see it as often is because most girls in the sport don't have a lot of breast tissue in their off season. Like, you know, most females, when they diet down, they lose their breasts entirely. I'm not one of those athletes. I kind of wish that I was, because it would warrant the BA more, but until then, you know, I'm not necessarily planning on jumping in and doing the thing that's not warranted. So I think you have to ask yourself, how is it going to make you feel? And, you know, do you really need it? Is it that going to make that big of a difference in your physique? Because girl, stuffing can do a lot. But anyways, it is now 6:18. I need to go get my steps in because I literally have, I think, 1,500 so far for the day. Oops, sorry. But it has been so fun reading all of your questions. I didn't know that I was going to get that many. So wherever you're at, I hope you're done with your dinner. I hope you're ready to tuck in and go to bed. I'm sorry this episode is probably longer than any episode of The Bachelor you've ever watched, but hopefully better. Once again, if you're a returner, if you're returning to my channel and you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up if you like this type of content. If you want me to release a podcast and you like them, leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts and let me know what you want me to talk about in those podcasts. If you are new to the channel, girl, hey! Do me a favor and subscribe because I bring out new videos every single Sunday. I hope that they set you up for a successful week. I hope they empower you. I hope they enrich your life, and I hope they teach you something. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, I am so eternally grateful for each and every one of you, especially for those of you that come over to my IG page and say, "What up, girl? I'm a follower on your YouTube channel, and I love your videos." I love you too, girl. All right, well, I hope you guys have a great week, and I hope you guys enjoyed this little Q&A. I'll talk to you soon.